Very well, welcome back to News Center as we continue bringing you stories and just having conversations around governance and access to information in this country today. In studio with me to have this conversation is Washington Sati, Commissioner, Commission on Administrative Justice, and Thomas Ansorg, Governance Cluster Coordinator, GIZ. Gentlemen, welcome to the show today as we have this conversation. And as I'll just go straight to Mr. Washington, as we have this conversation today, the Ombudsman's office is an integral part of this society as we speak with regards to access to information, knowing what the government is doing. What is your mandate and how important is this office for the people of Kenya?
Thank you very much. The Office of the Ombudsman, also known as the Commission on Administrative Justice, as constituted within our Act, is a very important public office responsible to promote good governance and, of course, enhance citizens holding the government accountable through different platforms where the citizens can complain for services that they feel perhaps there are delays they face, unresponsiveness, unfair treatment, abuse of office whenever they are interacting with the public officers when they go to seek for these services, both at national and county level. So when they are not satisfied with the services, the Office of the Ombudsman is there to do inquiries, investigation, and provide redress for the same. In addition to what you've said, in the year 2016, the mandate of the Ombudsman was expanded to effect Article 35 of the Constitution after the Access to Information Act was passed. Public entities or public offices hold fundamental information for the enjoyment of economic, social, and cultural rights. And therefore, when a citizen is seeking information, by the fact that culture of secrecy still exists and they are denied information within any government entity, then what the citizen can do is come to the Office of the Ombudsman to seek review. Like, for example, journalists like you who are doing a wonderful job, when they're seeking information and they're denied that information, then they can knock at our doors and we are there to intervene. Of course, but there are other informations that are under limitation.
Ansorg, as you come into the picture now, just how important is it for you to work with regards to governance with the CAJ and the government in ensuring that governance actually gets to the people the way it should?
No, thank you. Yeah, Chair said it's the agency that implements German Development Cooperation in Kenya, and good governance is one of the areas where we have our focus. We work in different sectors as well, just to name a few. We are engaged in agriculture, renewable energy, economic development, migration and refugees, as well as good governance. So in the governance area, we do work, for example, with the Commission on Administrative Justice. It's one of our longest standing partnerships, actually. We've been supporting CHA for many years. And the issue for us, especially around accountability and transparency, is a very important one. And that's where the Commission really comes in, as the Commissioner was explaining, helping, bridging the gaps between citizens and the public institutions, for example. That's a core area of interest for us.
And Ansorg, you said something very important with regards to information reaching to the citizens. But in terms of the Commission on Administrative Justice, what are some of the strategies that you've put in place to make sure that this information actually gets to the people down there? Because all this information should reach to a Kenyan who understands how important this information is. So what are some of the strategies that you put in place?
Thank you. As I mentioned earlier, access to information, the Act was passed in 2016. But I will say that it's still a new law that has not reached as many people or many citizens of this country as possible. the Office of the Ombudsman has come up with different initiatives which are aimed at, of course, both sides. This is the demand side and the supply side. On the demand side, I mean the citizenry. We know when the citizens don't know what their rights are in line with Article 35 of the Constitution and also the Access to Information Act, when they don't know, then they are not able to enjoy their rights. Like, for example, public participation. It's very strong, or comes out very strong within the Constitution, or in the Constitution. So one of the strategies or approach that we use is to do public forums, conduct public sensitization training. This week, the Office of the Ombudsman has been in different counties. We are just coming from Garissa. We were in Makueni last week. We had a team in Nakuru. We had a team in Embu. And the aim is to sensitize the citizens on their rights and access to information. How, when they are denied that information, what is the procedure of seeking review? What information can they request for and what can they not request for? So that is on the demand side. But also we believe that on the supply side, and that I mean the government entities, we also train them for them to appreciate what is their role under the Access to Information Act. Many, as we speak, still don't understand this law very well because of the culture of secrecy and the oath of office that they take, which of course was repealed by the passing of the Access to Information Act. So we also train the government officers to know what their role is in sharing and releasing information.
Your partnership with CAJ is very critical in making sure that governance gets to the people. So how has your partnership together helped in pushing this agenda forward?
Yeah, I think a lot of what the Commissioner was saying, I would want to underline. I mean, one, I think for us is to strengthen the institution, the Ombudsman institution here in Kenya. This is something we've been doing for many years now. We've been looking at supporting the Commission in terms of the outreach, going out to, as the Commissioner was describing, these engagement processes with citizens in different counties. I think one major achievement that I really see crucial, which is sort of a step forward really in terms of governance in Kenya, I find, is the digital tool that was adopted by the Commission to, for people to complain about maladministration, about issues they have, whether it's in the counties or at the national level. So a digital tool that allows people to send in their complaints, and then, not just to send in the complaint, but really to see how can these complaints be followed up. Do they need to be referred to other public institutions, for example, who have the responsibility for these issues? So that's an important tool, I think, that gives a lot of accountability and transparency to the governance sector here in Kenya.
And as you keep working with them on that, moving forward, what are some of the areas you're seeing yourself working with CAJ in making sure that, as much as there is a tool that they've adopted, the digital tool, which are some of the other areas in making sure that, as much as there is complaint, there is follow-up and resolution of the issues raised moving forward?
I mean, I think action is the most important part in the game. So clearly that's something where we want to continue our cooperation, focus on the action. There are other areas, of course. I mean, I think Kenya has made a lot of, great advancements in terms of good governance issues, access to information. The Commissioner mentioned the Access to Information Act that was passed, etc. So there's a lot of good policies around. It's when it comes to the implementation, I think, of these policies that we can do more. Other areas, for example, would include around procurement. How accountable and how transparent are contracts being made. So it also links back to the access to information. How have people, for example, in Baringo, access to contracts when it comes to infrastructure, building a road? I've just recently come back actually from Elgeyo Marakwet, where I was very impressed. So I was thinking, how much citizens can be engaged really in processes, whether it's around the budget, what rights do citizens have in terms of having access to all this information, then being able to follow up. If they know a road is meant to be built, how can they monitor it, that the road is actually being built? And then if they do have complaints indeed, where can they complain to? And that's again where the Ombudsman comes in, and that's how we see the whole cycle work.
Yeah, and yes, indeed, access to information is really important as we speak, especially when it comes to matters governance. And Washington, collaboration and partnerships in sending this message where it belongs is very important. You need support from the Kenyan government. You need it from partners like GIZ. You need the Kenyan people to rally behind this affair. So now, how has the partnership with GIZ helped you in making sure that you achieve your mandate and deliver to the people of Kenya?
Thank you so much. First, the Commission appreciates the long-standing partnership that we've had with GIZ. That has enabled us to deliver our constitutional mandate. Without GIZ's support, we might not have achieved, or we might have achieved little. The Office of the Ombudsman requires roughly 1.2 billion annually. We receive only 600 million from the National Treasury or the national government. You see, that creates a deficit, a very huge deficit, considering the fact that we are delivering two mandates, the access to information and complaints handling. So as you've pointed out, partnership becomes key and integral in the work of the Ombudsman. One of the functions that Kenyans gave us is, of course, to build a partnership, not only with the development partners, but also with public entities. Because resources will never be enough everywhere in the world. But through building partnership with different ministries, we are able to see that Kenyans enjoy their rights to access information. We are able to seek compensation, or they are able to seek compensation when they are denied. Like, for example, we have Kenyans who've worked and they have retired, but it takes them years for them to pursue their benefits or their pensions. With the Office of the Ombudsman, with partnership with GIZ and other offices, we've been able to assist thousands to access their pension. Those who denied information, they're able to access information as well. So in short, we appreciate the partnership that we've enjoyed with GIZ, and we look forward to invite even more partners to join hands in promoting good governance in this country, in this nation.
Yes, indeed, GIZ. Let's just talk about some stats that we have. This is your overall achievement in the program areas 2020 in the current phase. So what are these achievements you see, especially when it comes to the digital tool that you put in place? What can we sit today and say this tool has achieved this moving forward and has helped the Commission be able to achieve in its mandate? When you sit and you tap your chest and say, we've achieved these, what are these achievements?
Yeah, I mean, you always want to see achievements, right? To motivate you and to believe that what we're doing together here actually bears fruit. And I think the digital tool, it's called CMIS. Yes. I was talking to the Commissioner just before we started our discussion, and I think he was saying that over the last few years, the number of people who have actually put in complaints to the Commission has nearly doubled. I think that was within the last 3 years or so, if I'm not mistaken. But so, I mean, it shows, of course, that the awareness in the public amongst citizens about their rights on the one hand, but also whom to complain to, has clearly increased. So I'm very happy to see that. As we talked about earlier, I think the next step is the action. What actually happens to these complaints? And I think that's really important for people to see, if I complain, someone is actually caring about it and doing something about it. So that's, I think, where we will, look in the future to focus more on and to see, okay, what can we do about this to feed it back to citizens? I think there are other, talking about digital tools, we work with other government agencies here too. We work with the Treasury, for example. And And I was mentioning procurement, for example, as an area, often a challenging area in terms of corruption issues, transparency, etc. So I think there's also a good digital tool, it's called IFMIS, where more and more procurement data, information is now visible, it's public, it's shared, so people can access, they can put in contracts. Contract management is done digitally, so that, solves a lot of the issues, a lot of the challenges that we have seen in the past.
And the system is Complaints Management Information System, CMIS, has been in place, and it has really helped with regards to collecting information and knowing where the complaints are. But even as the numbers continue to rise with regards to complaints, shows there's a problem. So what are some of the problems that hinders the Commission from doing its job, and how do we solve them moving forward?
Thank you. Like I mentioned earlier, in relations to funding, we appreciate the government of Kenya that they have tried their best to be able to, of course, finance different public entities to carry out their mandate, but it's not enough. We believe that with more resources, we will be able to reach the grassroots, down to the grassroots. As you know, the Senate, in one of their resolutions, they said that the Commission on Administrative Justice should be in all 47 counties. And as we speak, we only have offices in 6 counties. We understand that we have a mandate to ensure that we bring services closer to the people. And that's why we've engaged with the Huduma to set up 12 Huduma desks through the management of the Huduma centers. But then we need more resources to do more public forums to ensure that citizens know about the existence of the Office of the Ombudsman, and they are there to listen to their complaints against public institutions and public officers. The second challenge that we have is, some or the decisions that we make, especially in line with the CAJ's Act of 2011, they are not legally binding. That is, of course, the trend of the ombudsmanship globally. They make recommendations, meaning that we leave that to the discretion of public entities to comply with our recommendations. Of course, we've had discussions to amend the CAJ Act to have more binding powers and decisions that we make, so that when we make a decision against a public entity, it must be complied to, as it is within the Access to Information Act. Whenever we make a decision under the Access to Information Act, they are legally binding and they can be enforced under a court of law. As I also mentioned, the level of awareness is still low, it's still growing. We want to ensure that 80–90% of Kenyans know about the Office of the Ombudsman. Because we know there are people who struggle with, for example, getting their IDs or letters for getting their IDs from the chief. There are people who struggle with letters for succession, many people, but they don't know what office to complain to. So we will want to do more and more awareness on that area as well.
And Ansorg, as we move forward, what is your message to Kenyans out there who are seeking for these services? Because you find someone would just decide not to come complain because they fear that they might not be heard, or they don't know the offices to go to. But here is CAJ. As we have this conversation, access to information and good governance, what is the role of a Kenyan in ensuring that they, first of all, put the offices that are there in place to make sure that they perform their duties, and that even complaining is their right?
Yes, good question. I think, I've only been in Kenya for less than a year now, but I've been to different countries also in the region here. And I see Kenya as a very, very vibrant place. Citizens do not shy away from making sure that they're heard, I think, which is great. And I think as much as your question goes towards what can they do more to complain, I think knowing that there are places like the Commission, like the Ombudsman, and other public institutions where people can go to, that's one side. But I think it's also about citizens complaining if their complaints are not then actioned. I think that's equally important to make sure that the Commission knows they have filed a complaint, but nothing has happened. So I think that is really important feedback too, because I think, the Commission is an important player, but so are other institutions. We have the Anti-Corruption Commission, for example, which comes into the play often. We have the justice sector, various different public institutions who all have to address these issues. So the Ombudsman can't do and solve everything. I think it's equally important that those institutions who provide the service to the public cooperate really well together. And I think that's also where I see still space for growth, and where I wish that the cooperation amongst the Kenyan institutions to provide these services to citizens will grow.
And Washington, finally to you as well. Kenyans out there every day are raising concerns with specific issues, various issues. As they still come to you, what is your message to them in terms of, don't be afraid, come to us. It is your right to complain, and as CAJ, we are there to sort out your issues. Just what is your message to Kenyans who are watching right now?
Thank you. The message from the Ombudsman to Kenyans is that this is a public office that Kenyans created themselves. And because they believed that public offices, public services is not a favor. Kenyans appreciate the journey that we've taken whenever they are seeking services within public institutions. We know what the experience has been. But now, the Office of the Ombudsman already exists. My challenge is to all the Kenyans, come and seek the services of the Office of the Ombudsman. That is within the law. Both the Access to Information Act and even the CAJ Act. Of course, there are limitations on access to information, but where law or the law allows, then the Office of the Ombudsman is there to intervene. Also, on complaints related to public offices, I just want to let everyone know that we are committed. We have a commitment to receive all the complaints. And whenever we receive a complaint, we will pursue them until they are, of course, taken care of within our mandate. Where it's not within our mandate, there are other public institutions like the EACC, like the DPP, and of course even the courts. The Ombudsman, of course, complements the work of the courts. The court processes, are adversarial and expensive, but the CAJ's services, of course, in their daily declaration or the work that we do, we are there to work for the citizens, and also we offer alternative dispute resolutions. So we want to ask those citizens who don't even have enough resources to go to court, the Office of the Ombudsman is there. We complement or we supplement the work of the court. And the processes that we use are very simple and free. So they are welcome to the Office of the Ombudsman. We have an office here in Nairobi. We have an office in Kisumu. We have an office in Eldoret. We have an office in Isiolo, in Nyahururu, in Mombasa, and of course in 12 Huduma desks throughout the country. So that is where they can seek their services. Thank you very much.
Very well spoken. Thomas Ansorg, Governance Cluster Coordinator, GIZ, and Washington Sati Commissioner, Commission on Administrative Justice, saying that access to information and good governance is your right. Just get out there, complain if you must complain, demand for what is rightfully yours. And definitely this conversation is being sent to you by KTN News, urging you to just get out there, be a Kenyan, participate in everything that will make your life easier. And of course, in studio, I also had the translator with me. He can introduce himself.
My name is Douglas Okera. Thank you so much.
Douglas Okera was made this conversation a success, and I say thank you very much for watching. This has been News Centers. We had that conversation on good governance and access to information. The conversation continues, and remember, continue watching KTN News. There is so much more that has been packed for you. My name is Dennis Sati. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.